For every 1% of materials not in stock, you potentially lose 3% of sales. If your supply chain's letting you down, if they're always late or incomplete in orders, and you then can't stock, and if you don't have metrics around that, you don't judge me on, have I got one bag of cement in on a Tuesday? Judge me on, have I got, a full load of cement every day of the week, 24/7, online, offline, everywhere a customer wants. That's true availability for me.
Yeah.
And if I've got that, brilliant.
Yeah.
The day I go to 2 bags and someone wants, half a load, well, I've lost bricks and lintels and everything, isn't it? You're dead.
Brilliant.
And what's that customer going to do when you talk about credit limit?
Yeah.
Oh, these just let me down.
And he's going to
go
tell all his
somewhere
mates.
else.
He's going to tell us. I don't know how many times I've been on a site. I'll never use them again. That's the last. Or you see a lad slamming down the phone. You can do that. You know what you can do with your business. Hi everybody, Gavin Coyle back again. I'm the Gaffer, and today's guest. What can I say about today's guest is massive experience in the purchasing and procurement side of things. So when I talk about purchasing and procurement, I'm thinking from the merchant point of view over to the client point of view and all the bit in the middle. This guy has the knowledge base built up within his career that he's seen all the touch points in all of those different areas in regards to supplying materials, using materials, buying at the best rate that you can be, becoming more efficient. And he's got some massive takeaways for us in terms of the conversation we're going to have today, because it's obviously one of the highest topics within construction. It's one of the ones obviously that people tell us that this is the one that's going to creep up and bite us, because people are signing into fixed price contracts. And when it comes to the house falling down around them, purchasing is one of the ones that really sticks out. So with that, Keith Wright, we are delighted to have you here today, and thanks very much for joining us.
No, pleasure. I love the fact there's OSB in this building already. It's proper tradey.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and lean obviously as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So you are the CEO of Keith Wright, or K Wright.
Wright.
It's a consultancy based business.
Founder, MD, CEO.
Wearing all the hats.
Making the tea.
Yeah.
Everything, yeah.
But in terms of, get us back to the early days then. Like, give us the story, the legacy of your career, because it's brilliant. I love people that stay in their lane. And I've probably been told a couple of times to stay in my lane. But it's brilliant because there's a very clear flow of your career progression. Maybe give us a sense of that experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends how far you want to go back. I mean, do you know what? If I had £1 for every time someone said they stumbled into construction, building materials, I would definitely have retired. It seems to be that no one seems to wake up and go, I'm going to be in this industry. Yet once you get in it, it's really hard to get out. But we'll come back to that. So I wanted to be an accountant, loved numbers, loved commercial. Didn't know what was commercial and procurement when I was a kid, but was studying and got a job in a local builders merchant. So it was sort of family run through my sister's husband at the time, and for 2 years I used to get on my little bike from school, cycle down, fill bags of sand by hand. The old days before automation came in on sand. So used to get let's say encouraged by the customers to put more scoops in, and then bollocked by the boss for putting too many in, and then lift these on by hand. So do sort of a couple of hours in the bay. If I was really lucky and it was raining and the Feb vehicle had delivered, I could put the Feb away. The old, building chemicals. That was a dream job because I was inside for a couple of hours. Got paid £2 an hour, so 20 quid a week, which was my beer money at a weekend. But that got me into building materials, and then kind of finished my A-levels. Wanted to be an accountant, realised actually that was a bit boring, didn't actually want to be an accountant, and got my first job in what was Builder Centre back then, so as now is big old Wolseley, but kind of got into building materials because I had some experience of that, got into kind of commercial roles, and that was it. I kind of
in builders merchants.
So kind of ended up on this journey, and it was this was kind of mid 90s at this point, and it was a really interesting industry back then. It still is an interesting industry, but
very fast paced.
Acquisitions, mergers. We had some big acquisition. It was a really fun place to be. I learned loads. Obviously, having worked in a merchant and sort of been firsthand what customers were doing. So yeah, and that was kind of it. I was kind of hooked. So
Yeah.
kind of had 13 years at Wolseley.
Wow.
Had some European stuff. Some big integration projects going on. So kind of got involved in some of that, which was really interesting.
Yeah. They were PLC. Were they PLC?
Big PLC, yeah. I mean, they had US, but I mean, your homeland, some Brooks over in Ireland,
Brooks,
had some businesses.
Yeah.
In France, in Denmark, in other parts of Scandinavia. So it was really interesting working through
massive
that.
machine.
And then, of course, subsequently left there, went to Travis Perkins, had
You were
14.
left or were you poached? It tends to be. I think there's.
Yeah.
Especially in that industry, it's a very small industry, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
It doesn't be long before your name starts getting out there.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I kind of got to a reasonable level at Wolseley, and then a very, very good job came up at TB, kind of leading one of their big product areas, their heavy side, which is, let's be honest, the sort of engine room of most builders merchants and such a big part of the construction industry.
Yeah.
So
what kind of title had you got at that
that
stage?
was product director. So I was 31 actually. I was 31, got product
and you were
director,
director.
and thought it was a bit scary. I'm not going to lie.
Fair play
Coming
to you.
into the market leader, thinking.
31 and then product director. That's a massive.
And then had 14 amazing years there. Went through. I mean, that was Wix were part of the group.
Yeah.
Again, BSS acquisitions, lots of things going on. So really good exposure.
Yeah.
Learnt loads. Kind of every few years. I must have been doing something right because I kept getting promoted.
Yeah.
So kind of getting more responsibility. And then it was 3 years ago that I thought, you know what, PLC, I was 27 years at that point.
You were institutionalised now, Keith.
Exactly that. I absolutely wasn't until I left and realised I absolutely was.
Takes years to unravel that stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were talking on the way up in terms of now running my own business. And I'm only semi-joking that you are doing everything. When I think about, I had, in theory, a way bigger role, let's say, in my corporate career.
Yeah.
But I had loads of people. If I had an HR issue, I'd ring the HR manager, or if I wanted some designing, can I talk to the marketing team? And there was just somebody for everything.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's, like Ghostbusters, who'd you call? Well, me, or actually your network. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, I've built a lot, really great network up actually since I've stepped away, and that's been. Actually the growth I've had, I think, in the last 3 years doing this, the variety, which we'll probably talk about, but I think I'm probably approaching 30 businesses that I've worked with in 3 years.
Brilliant.
And some light touch, could be a day, could be a couple of weeks, others
doesn't matter.
Sort of 3 to 6 months, but you're talking about construction businesses, you're talking about merchants, manufacturers, some startup businesses I'm working with at the moment that are doing some cool stuff. There's a bit of tech that's coming in that I've worked with some businesses. So it's really fascinating. I'm definitely one for the the up and comings, the sort of the disruptors and the innovators
and the underdog.
Do it. Exactly that. Yeah, 100%.
And there's a lot of underdogs listen to our show as well. I just think it's amazing that it's a brave move what you've done, having the safe environment built around you in terms of the corporate institutions. But like, as a man said to me that was living or working in a similar environment, he said to me, it's like it's like the song Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Well, there is that. It is. You can see why people stay for a long time, because you get very comfortable, and you can kind of bitch and moan, but actually, this isn't giving myself kudos, but
good.
You have to be prepared. It is like put up or shut up. If you don't like it, you can make a choice. You can write your own story. You can go and do something different.
Yeah.
You only get one go. So are you doing the things you really want to do?
But is there an entrepreneurial background in your family? Where did that gene come from out of you?
Do you know what? I don't know, actually. I mean, I think some distant relative had a shop in Newcastle, which is, despite the accent, where I grew up until I was 6. But no, I mean, my dad was sort of manual labour, but he grafted. I think that's the thing, is I like to work hard,
get out there and get
professional, committed,
100%,
take responsibility and deliver it and do it to the best of your ability. And sometimes you just got to take some risks. I tell you what, I think was the trigger, actually. Like most, I think COVID had a big effect. I think because I couldn't leave home, so I wasn't traveling around. And I had some great trips around the world seeing factories, and that's great the first time. But when it becomes part of your oh, another
routine.
another week to China this year. Great. See the wife and kids and wave goodbye. So actually, when you're at home, and I suddenly started taking my daughter to school and seeing the wife more, and thought, actually, what am I chasing? That bit of around, oh, it's the next salary, the next job, and then what for what? Are you ever actually happy that you're delivering stuff? And what's success?
What does
is
it
it
look like?
Having money in the bank, or is it having the best possible life you want to have?
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely a reset for me.
Yeah.
I realised that life was more than chasing the next thing, because I was never actually happy.
I wouldn't discount the time you spent in your brother-in-law's merchant either.
Yeah,
you probably got a bit of energy from that situation as well. Probably stuck with you as well.
Yeah.
In terms of running your own business, because it's a massive move, and fair play to you for doing it. Like really, hats off to you. Like, and it does take years to unravel all of this institutionalized processes and systems, and you can thoroughly understand PLCs putting all these programs in place so that there's a production line in place, and to have that learning. And I think that's great that for the construction industry, we probably would never see Keith on the other sides of the fence. It would have been always on the merchant side of the fence, but I think it's a conversation in itself that COVID has produced people like yourself that probably have realised that, hold on a minute, I can offer more, both from a professional point of view and from my own life and family point of view. How are you managing the entrepreneurial clock? How does your day sort of measure in terms of, do you get up bright and early, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you're going till 11 o'clock at night? Or have you got a work-life balance?
Yeah, I think I've got good balance. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, when I first left corporate, and I remember going on my first project, and I was exactly the way I was wired in corporate. I felt like I had to be at my desk this time. I'd work this amount of time. I was so used to 100 miles an hour doing. Yeah. And actually, even though I was a director, didn't have enough time to think about strategy. Yeah. Which I know can sound a bit corporate kind of rubbish, but actually that is what you're paid to do, is think. And in the job now, I have the ability, because I don't have a day job really. I don't have people to manage. Yeah. I don't have, admin and reports and internal nonsense that I used to have. Yeah. I can really focus on the client. Yeah. So this is not meant to sound corny, but that quality over quantity. Yeah. I'm okay if I'm working on something and I do an hour, but it's a really focused hour. I mean, how many times you do something and it's not actually just that thing, because an email will come in or someone will ring and you'll get distracted, and what you think was an hour is actually taking like 8. Yeah. So I can be really disciplined, and I still get up at a reasonable time, work out most mornings when I can, take my daughter to school, come home, make a cup of tea, probably empty the dishwasher and get the house sorted. Yeah. That's a bit of OCD. Kind of get ready, and then it's right, okay, what are we achieving today? But I'll work weekends sometimes, or evenings, and I think there's a niche here. Is there? I think is there a niche? I don't think is there much competition in your area that you've come across? Like, everybody thinks that they have this blueprint for this and blueprint for that, but for someone to come out with over 30 years experience in the purchasing supply chain at a very high level, and then say, right boys, I have blueprints that are actually going to turn the business around. Can't be that many people like yourself out there doing that. I think, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you've clearly got bigger consultants, so I'm not naive.
That's more change management and stuff.
And yes, and so I think that's that balance of having real world experience in businesses and having like the academia of I may have studied at Cambridge, Oxford, and be in these, and I'm not knocking those consultants because they're very bright. Yeah. But it is a different level in terms of the type of organisation they're working with. They're more likely to work with a PLC because they've got big resource. So I think for me, it's that balance of, hopefully there's credibility and authenticity. So I'm not saying I know everything by any stretch of the imagination. And I've worked, there's many good things I've seen, many bad things I've seen. So trying to be balanced in terms of how you bring those to businesses. And obviously the more exposure I have with different types of businesses and sizes and owners, and running a business is hard. I see that firsthand. 100%. I mean, leading a business is hard, but running a business and managing it and taking some of those decisions, we know in this country, small to medium enterprises make up the vast majority in numbers. They're a major part. I mean, what was there? There's over 1 million, I think, registered, small to medium contractors. Yeah, it's almost like they're kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, that's right.
Do they get the worst service or the worst price, or we'll kind of deal with them, and because they're on their own, they might seem small, but as a collective, they're so powerful.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people talk about the fragmentation in construction, that people don't join up. And do you see an opportunity maybe for companies to get together and have their own sort of network of purchasing?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if I think about further up the supply chains, you've obviously got big nationals or distribution businesses that have got the scale, and then you've got a whole bunch of the smaller independent merchants that collaborate. So there's a bunch of buying groups that effectively leverage their purchasing power. But I think there's a couple of gaps though. I think the commercial expertise, so the stuff that I would have done in my day job, in my corporate career, which was more than just buying, it was range management, pricing, looking at competitors, markets, insights, thinking about the customer, all of those things. Innovation. You can only really do in a business. It's difficult in a buying group because you've got autonomous businesses with their own owners and own strategies.
And agendas.
Actually, it's such a best practice. The thing around collaboration, which we haven't really touched on yet, for me, I think this is a market that everyone can, if everyone did their bit, I know it sounds really simple, but did their bit well, got paid, respectful, made a bit of money, actually, I think this industry could be significantly better. The problem, or one of the problems I think we have, is it almost feels like everyone's trying to score a point. Merchants, you need competitive tension.
Yeah, there's no transparency.
Yeah, and it's like, I've covered myself, so I'm going to put the burden down to you. And if you actually think about what we're trying to do in this country with housing pressure that we're under, renovations, home improvements, the repairs market, it always feels like we're behind the curve. And 100%. This industry gets it bang in the face. It's one of the first things. How many construction or housing ministers have we had in the last 10 years? More than 10, put it that way. There's no longevity. So it feels disjointed, it feels tactical, it feels short term. It's probably why we don't get the investment. There was a bit of a rush post-COVID because it seemed like it was sexy and everyone was making money, and guess what? We've gone into
couldn't get insulation, couldn't get timber.
Well, exactly. Exactly that. So I think we are. I know it's a bold statement, but I think we're better together as an industry. And that thing around, whether you're a contractor, whether you're making the stuff, whether you're inventing it, supplying it, delivering it, stocking it, installing it, those, if you do that together collectively with the shared mission of how do we actually, deliver these projects on time, everyone makes a margin, everyone gets paid. And then to me, that brings investment and I suppose security and confidence, and that's a word that
confidence is the word
is perhaps not used as often in this industry as we would like.
Yeah, no, great answer. I'm just thinking Brexit. You would be at the forefront of knowing whether that's a problem for the UK economy in terms of construction or not. Is it a problem?
I think to a certain degree you can overcome it. I mean, the shock. I mean, I remember. I won't go into detail because it's probably a bit confidential, but I remember being in very early the day after, and it was literally stand by your beds. We need a plan. This is what's going to happen, and a few false starts on the date didn't help. But I think, like most businesses, you really planned for the worst. That the concern about how long product was going to take to flow through the ports and what was pricing going to do, and all the red tape and nonsense that went with it. And I think we're definitely still recovering. I mean, I think there was a lot of over ordering, probably didn't help in many cases. And, we know that closer to home, the number of construction workers that were available and that never actually returned. And
that's right.
That's fine when you don't have the work, but we know that there's a lot more work than what we can currently cope with.
100%.
So I think it's that balance. To me, again, it just doesn't help. And this isn't a political broadcast, but I think it was just an unhelpful shock. To the industry that we could have done without.
But it does form the conversation around risk management. I suppose, like, would you leave it on the risk register as a potential slippery slope, if
Um,
or would it's, I suppose political
yeah,
is will always be on a risk register. You don't know what
no,
is going to happen or what's going to come around
no.
the corner, but in terms of the supply chain, is there a good, healthy conveyor belt? I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Back online now, or where are we at with that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of normalised. I think the shock, you kind of deal with it and you get on with it. I
Yeah,
think clearly it was seismic, and there's certain I always sort of work on the basis of there's certain things you can plan for, but you can only control the controllable. There's certain things you just can't control. But
yeah,
once you know, that's when you can start putting mitigating risk and mitigation sort of things in place. I mean, we've seen, think about the volatility with, Russia and Ukraine, the conflict that caused on availability of material. Timber went bananas because of
that's right.
Russia's supplies. We're seeing the same in the Middle East now with yet more pressure on freight,
Yeah,
and pricing and oil. And so reality is, and I don't know if this is a new thing in like the last 5 to 10 years, but I don't remember the frequency, B, the size, and C, just how big some of these economic shocks seem to have on our economy. It's almost like we're just waiting to peek behind the curtain every morning, see if something else has happened. Then it's like kaboom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just think, again, you can't control those factors.
Yeah,
You kind of have to run with it. But it feels like we're being in this. I don't know. We're in round 27 against Rocky.
yeah, it does.
And it's, oh God, it's another one coming out. We
Yeah.
just think we've got some sense of normality, and bang,
Yeah.
there's another major economic shock that we've had to deal with.
I'm kind of thinking if I'm in the van on the way home from a hard day's work, is there certain products that I need to keep making sure that I've got a good hedge on in terms of the workshop is full of aluminium or it's full of timber. There's no. Is there
Yeah,
any
I mean,
sort of lessons out of that we need to sort of watch this space because it's risky?
yeah, I think, I mean, there's only so much you can stock, right? So
Yeah.
I think to a certain degree, I think that's where you rely upon the merchant to be thinking ahead for some of those and try and mitigate with their buying power,
Yeah.
the risk of some of that. And, typically there'll be, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks stock sat in the merchant.
Okay. So that's the turnaround. That's the
yeah.
average turnaround.
Yeah. Now,
for the merchant.
cement will be 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
maybe some light side if it's imported from China
Depending on where the
might be 40
quarry
weeks.
might
but,
be up the road or whatever. Yeah.
and I think the other factor is something like, think about the core constitution of what's built in the UK. You're probably talking 70%, maybe 75% of that is in the UK.
Okay.
So yes, there'll be some components
Yeah.
that might come from other parts of the world, but principally, if it's aggregates, if it's cement, if it's blocks, if it's bricks,
Yeah.
they're kind of local to market.
Yeah.
So yes, you might get energy, might have an impact that we saw obviously, in the last sort of couple of years with what's been happening. But
I think that's a great takeaway to know that you need to be hedging 10 to 15 weeks out in your general model of keeping stock or of measuring where you are with stock. Would that be fair to say?
yeah, I mean, the challenge, of course, and I don't want to do the merchants a disservice here. I've got to be careful, but
Okay. Here it
it's,
comes.
it's this balance of manufacturer decides to put their prices up. What's justifying that? Is it a commodity? And you can track the LME for steel pricing. You get a reasonable handle on, let's say, what timber prices are doing across the world or what freight's doing. But I think there's an element of don't just believe the headline. You've got to challenge it. So whether you're a merchant challenging manufacturers, contractors challenging merchants and their supply chain, that was my job. Right?
Yeah.
I had to look you in the eye and say, well, show me. And even if you showed me, I don't have to agree with it. I can still say no if I've got some options, and that's where that shopping around bit. So I think, being mindful that they'll have some stock. There'll be a window where they'll be negotiating prices with the manufacturer anyway, and therefore, how long really is that stock priced into future jobs? I.e., just because it's gone up 10% today, if you're sat on 12-week stock, well, you just revalued your stock. You don't really need to charge that because you're not replenishing that stock for 10 weeks.
Very good.
So it's that balance, of course, but I suppose in fairness to the merchant, they won't get all of their increase either.
Yeah.
if customers shop around, if contractors shop around,
Yeah.
and they go elsewhere, or they navigate some reductions in those pricing, that's where there's potentially some margin squeeze. And probably goes back to the early comment I made around, just be reasonable. You don't have to agree with everything, but don't take the what. And I think that's, unfortunately, we've seen massive hyperinflation, some probably justified. I think the manufacturers have probably not had it their way in recent times, but I saw, I think it was last week, the latest sort of Construction Products Association update on pricing suggested we'd seen another moderate decline year on year. You're talking like 1 to 2% on construction products, but we're still 38% more than January 2020.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, great, prices have gone down, but they're still 38% higher.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that question. Actually, it's a great that you bring that up. In the super utopia world, say Gavin Coyle is running Gavin Coyle Plumbing, for example, and I'm doing probably 250 grand a year in that bracket in terms of turnover. When I'm looking at my model for 2025, for example, should I be putting in 3% increase on the products that I'm currently paying for within the merchant system? Like, can you talk to me about models? Do you have models that you can talk to us about that?
I mean, what's interesting, if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I'd have said put 3 to 4% in.
Okay.
So my budgeting was relatively easy because that's what it was. You could predict plasterboard was going to go up on this date, and aggregates would always have an annual review, and cement would go up. The commodities have always been a bit trickier. Timber either seems to be everyone's rich or everyone's poor. There never seems to be anything in the middle.
That's brilliant.
And then, of course, steel had doubled. I think steel's sort of significantly reduced. So I think I'm not avoiding the question. The problem I see is you look at the averages, and by default, it's an average and probably doesn't really fit anybody. So, you've got to think about, to a certain degree, the type of product you're buying, the type of market you're serving, the type of customers you're serving.
Yeah.
So even if you say, the construction market next year is going to be potentially, let's say, +2 in volume, that's an average. If you're more in commercial, or if you're more in residential, well, that +2 might be +10 or -10.
Yeah. And
if you buy more insulation, which has had some significant inflation, your number might be 5 or 10.
Yeah.
If you're buying landscaping, guess what? The RMI market's been soft, so there's probably more deals to be done. So you might actually get some better deals. You might want to put any inflation in it. So I think, to me, you've got to look at the facts like holistically.
Yeah.
But don't just assume that applies to you. The devil's in the detail here, and that's obviously what I do for a living. Is I ask and prod and poke and try and get to what's a more realistic view for the type of business you're in, whether that's trade, contractors, merchants, distributors, which segments of the market they're operating in.
If you don't mind me saying so, and you can shoot me for this, I don't think the merchants do themselves any favours by not communicating enough with the construction owners. I think it's very much like anytime you go into a merchant's yard, it's full of energy. Everybody's in a rush to get in and get out. But there doesn't seem to be many conversations going on in terms of, by the way, just to let you know, steel is going to be up in the next 6 months. So if you're going to buy steel, get in here now and start buying steel. I don't know if that conversation really happens. I don't see there's that sort of group thinking. Am I off?
I think that, the challenge I think we have again is it probably does happen, but it doesn't happen consistently.
No, or it's happening in individual cases rather than it being the norm.
I mean, you think about, there must be, I'm guessing, I bet there's over 1,000 outlets of people that sell stuff. If you include Screwfix and Toolstation, perhaps 1,000 merchants. Sorry, there were way more than 1,000 branches. So you think, how do you get that message out? If it's centrally driven, and the category teams might know, how are they cascading it? And if you're running a branch, you've got all these different hats. You've got safety and stock and order and this customer complaint and, I've got this initiative and I've got to do an audit, and there's just hundreds of things coming at you. So remembering it, even if you wanted to tell that customer, remembering it, and then that takes you into communication. So I think you're right. I think this, and it comes back to what I've already said before, which is it's collaboration, it's openness, it's trust.
Yeah, it's time.
It's saying, these things are happening.
Yeah.
At a forum I was at last week, somebody was saying exactly that. If suppliers told us that something had a lead time extension, I might not be happy, but I can plan for it
and build it in.
But it's like, don't tell me it's 5 weeks and deliver it in 10.
This is where I'm going with this, yeah. And now AI coming in as well. Surely they can do predictable stuff and even send it out to all these contractors and say, here, by the way, you seem to be buying 60% of the copper out of our merchant's yard. By the way, copper's going to go up or whatever, going to go down. Get in, start buying now.
Yeah.
Which is all the more reason why people would need someone like yourself, because at the moment it seems to me anyway, and this is why I wanted to get you on the show, was you're kind of like a conduit in itself between the merchant guys and the supply chain. And if I'm a contractor, I'm saying to myself, well, if I use Keith will be able to tell me, hedge your bets on timber, get it in now, so that you future-proof to your business and you're not going to disappoint your client. Is that too late a conversation in terms of the reality?
Yeah, well, it depends. It depends. I mean, I go back to most things are planned, right? So a manufacturer will be thinking, my prices are changing plus or minus, and have to notify their supply chain. You can't just put it up because you won't get paid.
Yeah.
So if you work on the basis of it might feel reactive at the front end, but reality is someone's had a thought, someone's budgeted it, someone starts that conversation throughout the supply chain.
Yeah.
Merchant has a negotiation. They then decide or don't decide on pricing. So that, let's say that could be a month or two. Then there could be another month or two before it gets implemented. So there's plenty. I think there's plenty time. The question is who knows what at what point, and how open are they? Because again, this is balance of, you want competitive tension. Everyone's here to try and make money. Let's be honest. We don't go to work just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to get paid. Everyone wants to make a profit. So I suppose that flip it another way, which is, if I'm running a construction project, it's like it's the 80-20, like Pareto rule. What are the things that could make or break the profitability on that job?
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about fixed pricing. If I've said, right, this job's going to cost 10 grand, and I have 10% inflation and I haven't priced it in, suddenly you're in trouble.
Negative.
If you say, actually, I've got my insulation spends 2 grand of that, and that's a material element of spend, I'd be saying, right, what do I think is going to happen? So if that job's going to take me 3 months, is it likely that price is going to change in 3 months? And what tolerance have I got? If it goes up by 10%, does it make a difference? If it's, 300 quid with the screws, that's not really going to make a difference in the grand scheme of it. Yeah. It's like negotiation with the supplier. You can negotiate for this, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I think it's saying, like any business, what are the things that make the biggest impact, that if I got that wrong, it could be detrimental to the profitability or my cash flow on the job. And then almost over-indexing on those products, because the other bits will sort of take care for themselves.
Yeah. So what is the common theme amongst your clients of the challenges that they face that you're able to fix?
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 or 3 lenses. I mean, if you sort of go back to what I've done throughout my career, you kind of, I call it procurement, but that isn't just sourcing. It's right through to how you sell ultimately to the customer.
Yeah.
So, I always liken it to, in a sales term, anyone can sell tenors for fivers, right? It's not difficult.
Great analogy.
So actually, to me, there's an element of, you can buy really cheap, but if it doesn't turn up, well, you've cost yourself way more money.
Yeah.
So I try to, and actually I've just got a client at the moment that I've just had an interesting conversation today, or potential client, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Where I've got a scorecard that says, here's 9 questions. If you answer these 9 questions, I can tell you whether your business is good or bad in procurement.
Brilliant.
And
Can we get a hold of that?
Yeah, I can share it.
Okay.
It's a free scorecard, so anyone can take it, get a free report, and if you're interested in having a chat afterwards, I can have a
great tool.
So simple as, do you know what you're buying and from who? Right, the most basic question. The amount of people that don't is unbelievable. So when you think about ESG, sustainability, all these things about how you can actually hold your supply chain to account, if you don't even know what you're buying and from who, that's going to be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So that's like the pivotal question. Then it goes on to things such as, do you have targets? Do you have objectives? How do you collaborate with your supply chain?
Yeah.
Do you have a contract? Do you have a service level agreement? Which isn't just pricing and terms. It could be, what's your lead time?
Yeah.
What's your load sizes? Do you want to see, in merchant terms, do you want to see some sales reps? How you're doing with data management and digital and those sorts of things. So
that's brilliant.
It's a real window, and I'll give you a stat, right? So I'd say 1 in 2, actually, 2 in 10 businesses do it to its capacity.
Wow.
Right, and these are marking their own homework. Which, if I was marking my own homework, I'd probably say it was a little bit better than it actually was. So if you give them the benefit of the doubt, it's probably not as good as they're saying it is, and it's not very good as it is. So that's why I get excited, because I'm sat here going, not that everyone wants to hire me, but bloody hell, what an opportunity to make this industry better,
100%.
Which has such a knock-on effect from how manufacturers make things, forecast it, deliver it, how merchants stock it, how they get it to market, how pricing's impacted, how trade customers then buy it and how they want it to work for their business. So, it's actually helping them be on site more and not driving to merchants who then don't have the stock and they've just wasted half a day. Yeah,
gone.
100%.
I can see you now working with a business owner. You're nearly like a broker, aren't you? Kind of when you think about it. It's true though, isn't it? Like you have all the cards facing up.
Yeah. Well, you sort of join the dots, and I think that is what's interesting. I mean, we were talking earlier about perhaps when I was in a corporate role. So I would say I was doing some of this, but just in the capacity of the business I was in.
Yeah.
But I had other stuff to do that was kind of getting in the way of doing all this stuff. So it is really fascinating. I get to do things I really like doing, which is solving problems and trying to do my bit. Exactly that.
Yeah, and giving back.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because, if you don't mind me saying so, I'm seeing you in the business, and I'm seeing you probably looking at something else within the business and going, that's not right. Well, I talked to them about that. No, know your lane. Stay on the purchasing, because I'd say there's other areas that you probably see where you probably can add value because of your corporate background. Yeah. And you probably have to check yourself a good few times to just go like, no, I'm here for this reason only.
Yeah. But it's also why, I mean, there's lots of things I have done. Doesn't mean I'm an expert in all of them. And I think when I made a transition to do this job, I could have theoretically I can probably do this in other industries, but I don't know there's industries as well, and they're not as they're not as much fun. I haven't experienced them, but I love this industry. Passionate about this industry. I spent more time in this industry than I haven't doing anything else. Probably 2/3 of my life in the building industry. So I'm really passionate by it, and I do enjoy it. So being in this industry, doing things that I was obviously relatively good at, to do the things I've done, that's why I chose to be a consultant and stay in this sort of lane.
You could have quite easily stayed in the corporate ladder, quite easily. And I think it's a credit to you that you actually took the plunge and went out. And it's like, it's a massive, if I'm running a construction company, like even if you just came in and done a gap analysis on how we do our business in terms of buying and what our supply chain looks like there's nobody perfect. I guarantee it doesn't matter how good you think you are at purchasing, there's always going to be a lesson to be learned, and it's so dynamic, and obviously because prices move up and down and all the struggles that you've already spoke about. But
it's also one version of the truth. This business that I say may or may not choose to work with me, but I got 3 people in their business to take the scorecard, and guess what? They all scored things differently.
Go on.
So in their own business, which is great, because I now say whatever they choose to do, they've got some insight, and they can calibrate it. So you go, well, there's only 3 of you doing different roles in the business. So why have you said that and you said that and you said that? What's your read on why you think those things are differently.
Yeah.
And some of it's quite binary. Either I do this or I don't do this, or I do a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And some kinds they've all said one of those combinations. So either, I do absolutely know how my teams are lined up with that of my supply base. So like supply chain teams talking to supply chain teams who kind of speak their own language. Yes, no, partly. Well, which one is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whose version is correct? So you think that calibration factor around get everyone on the same page, make sure you all understand what direction you're going and why you're going in that direction, then guess what? Go and put some plans in to fix it. It's not that hard.
No.
When you know where to look, and that's part of the problem. When you're spinning 100 plates as a business owner,
100%
it's
time.
just hard.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as well, is the day of the small merchant builder gone or on the way out?
It's a good question. Joe, if you'd asked me during the last recession, I'd have said yes. And guess what? They're all still here.
Yeah. Which
was frustrating international. Now I think it's great because there's good competitive tension. But do you know what? Hats off to them. There's some very good third, fourth generation businesses that are doing amazing,
and they're working mad hours.
Yeah. I think the thing that I think will get trickier. So if you're a big national, or even if you're part of, let's say, a bigger buying group or consortium, is you've got some economies of scale. Let's say digital fulfillment, ordering on the web, ordering through an app. Let's say that became 10% of the industry, and I bet it's not anywhere near that at the moment on average. How would you cope?
Yeah.
And have you got the infrastructure? Because it's not just have I built a website. It's, well, what does that mean for pricing? What does it mean for availability? What does it mean for PI counts and stock availability and range management and supply chain management? Then you go on and on and on to say, it's all right for you. You've ordered on your app. How do you think it's turned up?
Yeah.
What's all the components behind that? And that's why I'm so passionate about procurement supply chain, because I think it's a profession that's definitely underrated, yet it's so integral. Everything you ever see, everything you ever buy in any industry, in any sector, has come from somewhere, hasn't just appeared by the magic touch point.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I think will be tricky. You think about data integrity, sustainability, the golden thread, these big topical debates.
Yeah, not even that though, Keith. Like, how are they getting the buying power behind them to match the big guys?
Well, they're not. Relatives, they're not. I think the gap's a lot smaller, even with say the big nationals and the buying groups. But I think you can be clever to a point. You don't have to have brand leaders.
Okay, go on.
You could have. I'm trying to think of one that's not offensive. Let's say tools. Do you have to have a brand leading tool, or could you have your own brand? I know that needs scale, but could you go to someone that's consolidated that to give you some price differentiation? So, another thing that I've seen, obviously with the inflation I mentioned before, high 30s, was 40s, is, if you've still got the same £100 to spend, you take like social housing, if your budget is X and suddenly X plus 38 in terms of volume terms, how do you still do the job when you are not allowed to spend materially more? So that brand differentiation, you don't want to under engineer product to the point it doesn't work, because it has to do the job,
fit for purpose.
But do you need it to be a Rolls Royce?
It doesn't have to have the brand behind it.
Exactly
what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's where merchants and contractors can be clever about how do you shop around those sorts of things
without obviously putting risky materials into buildings and having fires. And we won't go into that that's another podcast. It's a very interesting point. Is there any nuggets of information you can give our audience in terms of how the big merchants manage the risk of contractors? I'm not asking you to give information that would, obviously there's confidential information, but I'm sure they have models of measuring risk within the business.
Yeah, there are clearly tools. It's a double-edged sword really, because you've got to accept that to a certain degree merchants are like a bank.
Yeah.
So you are providing credit. You're a supply chain manager and you're a credit facility. So you you come back to, you got to help leverage spend, but clearly you have to put some checks and balances in. So, and there are some tools. There's some tools out there that I've seen that are interesting, that help merchants have a look at some of those. There's obviously a lot of risk management around in terms of some of those businesses.
I'm trying to think sorry to cut across you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think more from the point of view, is there anything that I can do as a small business owner to increase my credibility and credit and currency with the local merchants that I might be able to leverage to get a better deal or to have a better relationship? Is that just simply just have a better relationship?
Well, I think, but I think you got to bear in mind that there's the credit team, to me, are there. They're not designed to have necessarily a relationship. They're designed to be fairly
Gatekeeper.
Arbitrary around it. The metrics say this or this. If you're increasingly paying late, if you're increasingly maxing out on your credit limit and then paying late, there'll be some indicators that say cash potentially looks like it's starting to become an issue. And then who has that conversation? Is it the branch? Is it a salesperson? Depending on the size of your business. So that there's definitely a relationship bit and trust that comes in. The flip side of it, of course, is how many people do you have credit accounts with? So stating the obvious, if you only have one, and let's say you've got a 50 grand limit with one, as opposed to a 20 grand limit with five, if that's practical, then how do you shop around and use that credit limit in a different way? Because you might be seen as a smaller risk for one entity versus a bigger risk for another.
So walk me through this, because I'm stupid. Merchants don't look at the size of the business in terms of turnover when they calculate risk. There'll
be an element of that.
Okay.
But then, of course, there'll be some trades that are too small to publish accounts with that level of data. So,
are you telling me that they do look at the size of the company and the turnover of the company?
They might do in some cases, but that's where I think technology can definitely help.
Yeah. Okay.
I think some of the models that say we've looked at the history of this business, insolvency risk, turnover, performance, profitability. Yeah. But obviously that only works to a point in terms of size. The challenge you have is no one's going to turn up and say, I'm really small, I might be a credit risk, can I have an account please? And they say, I've got all this work and I'm going to pay on time. Honestly, can I have a trade account?
Yeah. I'm looking for maybe creative models. So if I went to the merchant and I said, by the way, I spent 60 grand with you last year. Tell you what I'll do. I'm going to give you 10 grand a month, every month. Yeah. And then I'm going to give you a nice little finishing off at the end of the year. So at least I know I'm losing 10 grand every month. Yeah. But I might spend 20 grand one month, or I might spend 8 grand the next month. Yeah. Is that conversation a conversation that can be had, for example?
Yeah. Seriously, but it's choosing the right person in that business to have it with. Okay. I mean, to me, that isn't a conversation with credit. That's a conversation with someone that said, whether it's a branch that's serving you, I say, or if it's a relationship with a sales rep or something, because I've never met a sales rep that wouldn't want you to buy more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think about incentives. So merchants will have incentive schemes with manufacturers, buy more, you might get some incremental benefit through a deal. Merchants will give, depending on size of customer, obviously some incentives to some of that. So spend these numbers, we might give you a kickback or a rebate. Okay. So, because that's where the bit comes back. Use the flip side of that. I'm not maximising my credit. In some cases, I see loads of trade account get opened and never ever bought from. So what's the point of that?
After all the hassle.
You go through all that and never actually buy. I mean, what an opportunity. You got a warm lead to actually follow up and say you went to all this effort, why you're not using. So I almost think the sales opportunity of maximising the credit facilities is probably greater than the risk. Yeah. I mean, if you actually got the customers that have bothered to find you as a seller and want to do business with you and signal their interest and never buy is mad,
mind-boggling. Because I had this thought earlier on when you were talking was I think the merchants could actually take a lot more from you as well. I was kind of coming at it from an angle of you're able to help the construction owner and the client maybe, but the merchant could actually really do with someone like yourself as well to go in and look at how they're actually, the small to medium size corner shop merchant. Yeah. What efficiencies of models they have in their own business to, increase customer satisfaction, increase market share, get their name out there and stuff like that. Have you had any approaches?
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with a few. I mean, that's, I think I mentioned, if it was on camera, off camera, but I've worked with about 30 businesses since I set up this in the last 3 years. So some of those have been, I don't know, maybe £10 million sort of merchants. I've worked with some that are a little bit bigger at kind of 2 billion.
Yeah.
So often through my network and my connection, but there are different things. I mean, I was talking earlier about procurement is not just, can I take 2p off your bag of cement? Yes, I've saved some money. There's nuances in terms of how you manage that side of it. I mean,
it's a machine.
One of the interesting things, and I never know if this was just made up, but so many people said it that I've taken, some bright person must have said it's true, was that for every 1%, and I explained the number, for every 1% of materials not in stock, you potentially lose 3% of sales.
Come on.
So let's say a supermarket wants to be, you're never 100 because the cost of getting 100%. So everything in stock every day of the week, every single minute.
Yeah.
So if you said kind of 97% was your measure, if you drop below that, then by default, you're not optimize. A customer walks in, you don't have it, or place an order and you don't have it. Not only have you lost that thing, but is it likely they're just buying, 5 bags of cement? Well, probably not. They're probably going to buy other stuff. So
it's the checkout model, isn't it?
Exactly that. Yeah. So the range management bit that says, have you got, and it comes back to the supply chain. If your supply chain's letting you down, if they're always late or incomplete in orders, and you then can't stock, and if you don't have metrics around that, don't judge me on, have I got 1 bag of cement in on a Tuesday? Judge me on, have I got, a full load of cement every day of the week, 24/7, online, offline, everywhere customer wants. That's true availability for me.
Yeah.
And if I've got that, brilliant. Yeah. The day I go to 2 bags and someone wants, half a load, well, I've lost bricks and lintels and everything, isn't it? You're dead.
Brilliant.
And what's that customer going to do when you talk about credit limit? Oh, these just let me down. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Exactly that. I don't know how many times I've been on a site, I'll never use them again. That's the last. Or you see a lad slamming down the phone. You can do that. You know what you can do with your business.
But time's money, isn't it? No one wants that frustration. And that's an example where no one wins.
Yeah.
The manufacturer doesn't get the sale, merchant doesn't get the sale, well, customer potentially has lost money. So everyone in that case, it's like lose. Yeah. It's not a model.
Not a massive knock-on effect.
Huge.
Reputational damage and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a few curved balls at you, if you don't mind, just because, sure, look, why not? What's your favourite book and why?
Can I say my own that's out in about...
whatever book you want.
So my book's out in about 4 weeks. That's a shameless plug.
Yeah, well,
so the power of professional...
my own book, so
the power of professional procurement, how to unlock the hidden profit potential of your business, is in final editing stage.
Wow.
So I'm aiming... Actually, I haven't said this anywhere. I'm aiming for May the 12th. A, because it was my late dad's birthday.
Oh, sorry.
And B, because it was the day I registered Wright consultancy. Which will be 3 years on that day. So I'm hoping, if it all goes to plan, that my first book will be out. And that is a full playbook on everything I've known and learned for 30 years.
So we've gone through this whole podcast and we're only getting to that now.
I should have said that at the outset.
Yeah. What's the name of the book again?
The Power of Professional Procurement.
And you've done it all on your own in terms of it's there's no co-writing with it. It's all from
all the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So you're going to go down the Amazon route with that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I've got a call with the chap that's helped me publish it after this, actually. So we're at the final stages.
Love it.
So yeah, I think, do you know what? I think one of the things, there's a guy called Daniel Priestley. So not to Daniel. Yeah. So I did his KPI.
He's a scorecard system
accelerator. He does. Yeah. Who knew? And he probably had the biggest impact as I came out of this into being an entrepreneur, running my own business. So. Yeah, that key person of influence, which I know is a game changer for him. Yeah. I've listened to multiple times. I've got the copy. It's in my car.
He says give the book away for free. You know?
He does. He does. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure you get a signed copy.
That's not going to wear well with you coming from the purchasing background.
Yeah. Well, it depends whether you exchange money for the book or money for something.
It is I thought it was a brilliant analogy. Like, give the book, give it away, give it to them.
Yeah.
You're not going to make money on books. Like, even my own book is on Amazon, over 100 copies. There's no money in books, but I tell you what it does do. What I found was it allowed me to offload all the stuff that was in my head into one condensed version of me. And it's definitely it's a very difficult. Hats off to you, because it's not an easy task. It's definitely a challenge. Getting published as well, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I wrote it in about 3 months, and then I kind of had a stall because business got busy, and then I had it, and then needed to get it over the line. So I think probably the biggest impact, sort of finding Daniel 2 years into this, going through his program, reading his books.
Fair play to you.
And he's taught me a lot in terms of your own brand. That's the KPI bit, isn't it? Be an authority, put yourself out there, take some risks, do crazy stuff like do live podcasts with you.
Well, what's the point in tripping over and having to learn when somebody else can give you the playbook and sort of say, here?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, and obviously I have some mutual contacts as well. No, Daniel, and I speak very highly of him. You'll love. I'm going to give myself a bit of a plug if you don't mind, because only because of your background. Mine was workplace safety on a budget.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of it. It's free.
Yeah. Oh, we'll swap books then. We'll make that agreement. You sign that one and I'll sign mine.
No problem. We won't. It probably if you are going Amazon, probably. I was just thinking about the show notes, but we can probably put a link in at some stage.
Yeah, cool.
You can come back to us and we'll update the show notes. Favorite holiday destination and why?
Can I have two?
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to go...
You're being greedy now.
I'm going selfishly the Maldives, which was actually my honeymoon, but I always said to my wife we'd go back.
Okay.
It was just idyllic. And we got off the plane that landed, and it said no news, no shoes. And that was it. We were just like, it was only a week, because we had the little one was quite little at that point.
Yeah.
And then probably... I'm a big kid, probably Florida with the kids, because I love my family. I love to bits. So I think seeing their little eyes in Disney, and I do love the roller coasters.
Yeah, it's a bit of a
fun.
kid in you.
Yeah.
Which is lead me on to the next one is something interesting about you that nobody would probably know.
Do you know what?
Hold on a minute. I don't want the divorce papers coming across here.
I remember this the other day. You know when you do things in your life and you sort of think, was that actually real? So it wasn't for very long. I played football at the old Wembley Stadium.
Go on.
Yeah. I was in the changing rooms. I walked out the tunnel, played about 10 minutes in this kind of tournament. Went in the big bath at the end.
Stop.
So that was pretty cool.
What was that for? Was it a charity? Or was
it was something to do with some roadside services. It was sponsored by Coca-Cola at the time. That wasn't a shameless plug. I'm not getting any benefits for that. And it was like team was Fanta and Coke and all these things. And we somehow got to the final and played with a bunch of other teams at Wembley. So
brilliant.
It's a long time ago. And I'd forgot until I mentioned it the other day, because we went past Wembley. I was like, I'm sure I played at the old one when I was younger.
I didn't get a picture or anything at that time, no?
No, there's no photograph. It was a long time ago. I'm obviously getting on a bit. I was probably like 22 or 25 or something.
Yeah. Favourite car or vehicle? Doesn't have to be a car. And why?
Do you know what? I'm going to sound like a nerd. I've not been on one. I want to go on, not necessarily the Orient Express, but an old train, even like the Flying Scotsman or something like that. Me and my wife have said.
Steam train.
I think there's just something romantic about rail travel, not when you're going on like the LNRE to Newcastle or something.
Yeah.
But I think the old version, it's a nice, pleasurable way to move around. I do like cars, but I think that
seals it for
nice.
you.
Yeah. Because you can relax and enjoy it. And stuff.
Keith, you're... I don't know where to start or stop with you. We've covered an awful lot. I think, is there anything we didn't cover? Do you think we missed? Is there anything we missed out on? I think we've covered nearly everything.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the people in this industry, and I mean, it's. I can't compare it to any others because I've only really worked in this one. But the friendship. I mean, as I said, I've worked in this industry for 30 years, and even actually I reference him in my book. Dave Elliott gave me my first ever job. I was in a green suit from Burton Menswear and with a gold earring. I don't know why the hell he chose me. I'd missed the bus and I ran up the hill to get to my job interview in this hideous green suit.
Sweating.
And he still gave me a job, bless him. So that was when I left the Independent and worked for Builder Centre. But I'm eternally grateful to him. But you have characters that mold you throughout your career, and it does worry me around the sort of sexiness of this industry. It's so important. People need safe, warm, dry homes. Everything you look, even in this studio, most the walls, the pipes, the
carpets,
water,
whatever.
everything has come from someone that's invented it, made it, distributed it. So I think that balance of how do you make this industry, put it on the map? It's not a plug for necessarily the BMF or me as an ambassador, but that role I do with others, which is trying to keep the industry not just alive, but
sustainable.
Not even outreaching to just school kids. We were talking earlier about
young kids.
The people leaving the industry that have got so much experience. Yet they can teach. It could be a day or two a week as a mentor or just passing on that knowledge. So I think, it's probably outside of my direct lane in the day job I do, but how we can, take my story. I didn't know I wasn't going to be MD of my own consultancy business when I left school. And I knew I liked numbers and I liked the building industry. That was it.
I totally, I'm really happy you brought that up because it's one of the most topical things that we're coming across is how the hell are we going to manage this in the future? And what does that look like? And hopefully through podcasts and through industry forums that people get out there and start saying, we need to come up with a proper blueprint as a collective and not in individual silos. If people want to contact you, how do we get in contact with you?
So the website is www.kwrightconsultancy.co.uk.
And Wright is WRIGHT.
It is. You can follow me on TikTok. At the Procurement Expert.
Okay.
I don't know what my LinkedIn handle is. I'm probably more active on LinkedIn. Actually, probably equally active on LinkedIn and TikTok. So they're probably the best two. Actually, if you do go to the website, and I talked about the scorecard, it pops up. So you can close it down. If it pops up, you can literally put an email address in, and it'll allow you to take to
download it.
The 9 questions. It takes 2 minutes, and you'll get that free report. So if you want to connect with me and have some insight for your business that could make you better, then you can do that for free.
Keith, you're a gentleman and we wish you every success, and thanks very much for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks, pal. Well done.